Now, the Constitutional Court has ruled against the impeachments of 4 officials yesterday, including the head of the nation's audit agency and 3 top prosecutors here in Seoul, ahead of the much-anticipated verdict that will decide the president's political fate. For more on this, we turn to Professor Paik Eun-seok from Handong International Law School. Professor Paik, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. So the court has dismissed the parliament's motions to impeach 4 state officials. How will this in any way affect President Yoon's impeachment case?
Right. Apparently, as the court was deciding on these impeachment cases against the government officials, its ruling on the president impeachment case has been pushed back. So that is the most immediate effect, scheduling-wise. Now, substantively, how this may affect the president impeachment case, that's a harder question. I think it will help us if we separate the rhetoric and the substance. The ruling party, PPP, and the president's supporters would like to use this occasion, and actually they did yesterday, to reassert what President Yoon has maintained all along, that a martial law declaration was justified or was necessary in response to the opposition party's abuse of its majority power in the National Assembly through repeated politically motivated impeachment motions against the government officials. It has to be pointed out, though, that the Constitutional Court did say this time and on previous occasions as well, that even when the motions to impeach are dismissed, it does not follow that the National Assembly actually abused its impeachment power to remove. And also in terms of substantive constitutional questions before the court, I think the decisions on the impeachment cases against the government officials should not affect the president case, because the question is essentially whether the constitutional requirements for declaring martial law were satisfied, and the severity of the constitutional violation was such that the president should be removed. And so these questions would have to be decided by the court. And once again, substantively speaking, these decisions on other government officials, in my view, should not affect president's case too much, apart from the rhetorics.
Right, and as we just heard, initially it was widely believed that an impeachment ruling for the president would be made sometime this week, but it appears to have been pushed back. Why is this, and when can we expect this to happen?
Once again, the court deciding on other impeachment cases has pushed the court's ruling in president's case, once again, scheduling-wise. And in terms of when exactly the court will issue the ruling in the president impeachment case, that's really hard. And increasingly these days, especially on matters related to president's impeachment and criminal cases, predicting becomes harder. I predicted, appearing on this program a couple of weeks ago, that the district court is very unlikely to accept President Yoon's argument, asking the court to cancel or rescind detention. But I was wrong on that. But I think, as you mentioned, most court observers and experts have predicted, based on previous impeachment cases against the sitting president, that today, actually, March 14th, Friday, would be the most likely date for the court's ruling. And we don't have that today. So sometime next week, but again, exactly when, that's not an easy question to answer. But I do hope that the court will get to the president's impeachment case sooner rather than later, in order to resolve the continuing political uncertainty and the instability in the country.
Right, possibly next week. And also Prime Minister Han Duck-soo also awaits the court's decision after the National Assembly voted to impeach him. So I have to ask you, is there a possibility that the court may make the final decision on the impeachment case of both the president and the prime minister on the same day?
Well, as a matter of possibility, yes. But alternatively, the court may rule in the prime minister's case first before it rules on the president's case, or the court may rule in the president's case before it gets to the prime minister's case. I think there could be arguments for either of those scenarios. Ruling in the prime minister case before the court gets to the president's case, of course, the issues in the prime minister's case are a lot simpler. And as you may know, there was only one hearing in the prime minister's impeachment case. And so the court may get to the prime minister's impeachment case before it reaches and rules on the president case. But on the other hand, given the importance of the president's impeachment case, that case is a lot more consequential than prime minister's case. So the court may get to it before it reaches the prime minister. I think both scenarios are possible. Again, I do hope that the court does issue its ruling in the president's impeachment case sooner rather than later in order to bring to a close the ongoing political uncertainty and instability.
Right, you just mentioned the importance of this case, and back in 2017, during former President Paik Eun-seok's case, the Constitutional Court justices unanimously approved the parliament's motion to impeach her. So do you think there's a possibility that the court is right now taking more time to make a unanimous decision since an impeachment of a president is such a sensitive issue?
Right, the commentator earlier in this program did say that the fact that the court seems to be taking a lot more time may indicate that the members of the court really want to reach a consensus on this. I think it's very important to once again highlight that any split decision, only the majority justices ruling in one way and having some dissenting justices, that would not be a very good idea at all. So maybe indeed the court is continuing on with its conference of the members in order to come to a unanimous decision. And I think that would be a great service to the country. Again, exactly why the court is taking a lot longer time than expected, there may be some other reasons, but at the end of the day, I think it's very important, critically important, I would say, for the court to issue a unanimous decision on this so that the continuing political uncertainty and instability of the country will be resolved by the court. And that will be a great service to the country.
Right, and the last thing I want to ask you is the Constitutional Court is currently one short of its full 9-member bench. So another very important issue is the appointment of Justice nominee Ma Eun-seok. How is this expected to affect the final decision on President Yoon's case?
Well, the court ruled earlier that the acting president's failure to appoint the nominee was a violation of the rights of the National Assembly. So there was a court ruling on that. And now the acting president is still, I guess, considering other factors, and he hasn't actually acted on it yet. Adding one more member to the court may change the scheduling, to say the least. Because once a new member joins the bench, then the hearings may have to be repeated, and there are other procedural issues to consider. Maybe that and some other reasons point to the acting president not appointing, at least until the ruling is issued in the president's case. But at the end of the day, there are other considerations to make, and I hope even when the appointment's made, the court would not be affected in terms of the procedure, in terms of substance in ruling on the president's case at the end of the day.
All right, Professor Paik, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.